No sé, están hablando, no sé.
Cuando llegan los israelitas que empieza la pasión.
Voy ahorita. ¿Quieres pasar? Si no amarras la cinta alrededor de mí, me voy a sentir excluida.
Okay, pues.
No.
Esos invasores, ¿qué pasó?
En Los Ángeles todos mis en vivos son enfrente de una cinta amarilla.
¿Qué? ¿Nos estás votando o qué?
Ahí viene una contingencia militar. Pero si pasan, vamos a ellos. Si está pasando algo aquí, vamos aquí y después al edificio.
Están los rojos.
¿Qué?
Los rojos son de acá, creo. Al lado de la policía.
Okay, thank you very much. ¿Qué?
Huele puro tamal hace rato.
¿Están los japoneses? Ya no están ahí arriba, ¿verdad?
Sí.
¿Están? ¿Los ves?
Sí, mira.
¿Están arriba?
Hay uno nada más.
Gracias. Mis ojos no ven. Aquí vamos, vamos.
Yo que tú, el japonés te digo si está o no está. Aquí será aquí. No, está mucho más.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone. It is believed that that missing child that didn't exist is actually an adult, and the search and rescue effort at the Enrique Rezamen school does continue. Now, we are in the Colonia Condesa. Take a look at this collapsed building behind me. This was a 6-story office building. Now, the search here was postponed because of a heavy thunderstorm and because the weight of that water actually caused the building to shift, and all the rescue workers were in imminent danger. So they were all called down off of the pile, this concrete rubble, for their own safety. And you can only imagine the agony of family members as they are watching this. Right now, the search and rescue effort is set to resume. We have the Japanese team on top of the building. The Israeli search and rescue team has just arrived, and there are 18 different teams waiting to go in. Now, inside the building, I want to show you a picture of Paulino Estrada Villegas. He's a 37-year-old accountant. He's a father of 2. He is trapped in that office building. He has been sending WhatsApp pictures to his family. The last picture coming in about an hour and a half ago. His wife right now is with rescue workers. She's been showing them those pictures, hoping for a clue in them to where he is. He has not been able to speak. He has not been able to text them any words, any message, but they know he's alive because the messages continue to come through the WhatsApp application. Now, we spoke to his family, his brother Alejandro and his cousin Xochitl.
I know you're live.
I'm live. I'm live.
After all. Váyale cayendo.
I'm back here live, a very tense situation as the search and rescue effort continues, resumes again after hours of nothing happening here. Now, there is a list up. It has 52 names of unaccounted people on it, and they do believe those people are trapped under the rubble. Time is running out. We are approaching the 72-hour mark, 3 days since that 7.1 earthquake happened here in Mexico. And here in Mexico, they believe that someone can only survive 3 days alive, trapped under so much rubble. That building you're looking at behind me was actually 6 stories, and it completely collapsed during the earthquake. Those people did not even have a chance to get out. We are live in Mexico City. I'm Gigi Gracia. We'll send it back to our studios in Los Angeles. Ya perdí el teléfono, estoy. Ya me dejo.
¿Viste?
All right, everyone, it looks like we've lost that feed from Mexico, so I want to go ahead and cut out of this and take you live to the UN, where the General Assembly is being addressed right now.
Social, political, and economic systems. We live in a world of imperfect choices. Choices between clinging to old systems that do not serve us and rethinking new ways to secure a better future. We must not turn away from the hard choices. We must not fear change. Our challenges are real, serious, and many. We, the United Nations, must get better at the policies that strike at the root of the problem and ground our 17 Sustainable Development Goals in one word: equity. I must repeat a point stated earlier, that in a time where inequity pervades every aspect of our international order, what hope do we have to successfully implement the SDGs when the deck is stacked against many of our people? How do we ensure that all citizens have the most basic needs, like food, on their plates when we struggle from crisis to crisis? We must agree that there should be a minimum standard of living for each and every one of our citizens. And we must maintain base standards that provide adequate health care, education, housing, security, and economic opportunity for every citizen in our countries. Without establishing such standards, we cannot engage in any meaningful discussion or action plan for sustainable development. This is what will stem the flow of migration. This is what will offer opportunities for them to be productive members of our society. This is what will dull the urge that drives some to crime and others into the arms of groups that foment evil. Any overhaul of the UN system must be founded on the principle of equity, without which sustainable development goals are dreams that go away when we open our eyes to the constant state of crisis. Mr. President, I take this moment to assure the Secretary General of my country's support in the necessary effort to reform this institution, to address a new era of responsibility. At the heart of any reform of this nature, we must all, nations large and small, play our role to protect the rights of individuals everywhere. In the face of mounting challenges, we must seek the courage and the wisdom to act boldly and collectively, to revise outmoded programs and that are so glaringly inadequate and to the needs of our time. We have to harness new ideas and technology and to invest in the individuals and the generations that will build our future. We must see more in terms of outcomes and less in terms of bureaucracy. We must come here to make a difference and to be able to return to our homes delivering on the promise that we make. The mobilization of the leadership of the world to come here is all for naught if we don't deliver. We must come here to make a difference and not get carried away by the name calling, but instead ground our discourse in common respect and a commitment to deliver to those we lead. Mr. President, we must understand and acknowledge that when times change, so must we. Our claims to the fidelity to the words of the Charter mean nothing if we do not create new responses to old and new challenges. We must be the source of hope to the poor, the sick, the marginalized, to ensure peace and a decent life for all of our citizens on a sustainable planet. This requires the constant advance of the principles of our Charter. The commitments we make to each other must be honored, thereby strengthening our trust. Within and beyond this organization, we must look more honestly at how we categorize each other and how the development and donor community rank us. How can we call a country a middle-income one today based solely on its per capita GDP, when we know that its geographic location renders it vulnerable to natural disasters that have the capacity to bring it and its people to their knees? It is unconscionable to see our peers have to beg and plead for goodwill and to have to depend on commercial rates to rebuild broken economies, all because the traditional system is so unyielding, archaic in its design, and at times heartless. This model must change to one that allows small and developing nations the real opportunity to survive and thrive in an increasingly cold global environment. The model has to change to allow us all the opportunity to build back stronger and more resilient, the infrastructure that can secure our futures and that of our people. Mr. President, the people of my region are resilient. We're a people and a region committed to working together to rebuild stronger and better. In times of challenge, we do not hesitate to commit our scarce resources to each other, truly being our brother's keeper. We've also been very fortunate to receive support from friends near and far as we seek to make a better world for those who will follow us. In our case, friendships like those that we have with Taiwan, Cuba, and Mexico, amongst others, allow us to envision a positive future. I ask that while we may come from different places and with different priorities, we must never forget that we share a common future. A future that will only be secure if we meet threats, challenges, and opportunities together with greater cooperation and understanding. Our generation's task is to engage in a common effort and towards a common purpose.
All right, everyone, we are going to cut this live UN feed to take you live instead to Mexico City, where we're going to continue to watch rescuers and crews search through the debris at that Mexico textile factory collapse. This textile factory collapsed today, days after that magnitude 7.1 earthquake struck.
you know, before or after I want to do this. Okay. All right, let's go to leave this. Yeah, let's try and read. Well, she's not told the 2. We could do the edge. Edge first or refeed the dog stuff.
It's got to extend the logo.
So we're ready.
We'll do a level check first.
Okay, where are we? Rescue workers still scrambling to dig out survivors from Mexico's deadliest earthquake in more than 3 decades. I'm Jonathan Hunt. Good on levels?
All right, as you can see, the Fox News reporter there on scene in Mexico is just preparing for his live shot. We are watching these live pictures come in from Mexico City following a textile factory collapse just days after the 7.1 earthquake struck.
To dig out survivors from Mexico's deadliest earthquake in more than 3 decades. I'm Jonathan Hunt in Mexico City. I'll have the details coming up. And that's the tease and package track. Rescue workers here in Mexico City.
All right, so as you can see, the reporter there on the scene, Jonathan Hunt, just did a tease for Fox News Channel. And now he is doing some voiceover work there. You guys are watching all the behind-the-scenes action here on News Now. This is a live feed coming in from Fox News Channel, the Fox News Channel reporter there on the ground in Mexico City.
You want to go back in on that? Oh yeah, the sledgehammering. Okay, pick up track. All right, everyone, while we wait for this textile factory collapse feed to show us a clear look at the factory that collapsed, I'm going to actually switch gears and take you to the White House. We are waiting for a White House Garden event to start with First Lady Melania Trump.
How many of y'all need bigger gloves? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 pairs.
All set, Chris? No.
Guys, can you scoot down a little? Perfect. Are you guys all good?
I'm going to walk back over here.
I did it. You were more crazy.
I can tell you're in these. But where's your people?
Oh, my machine call you.
Did anybody have any guards?
You don't have a TV?
Oh, wow.
How dare you say? How very dare.
So, you know, I was in Russell yesterday.
That's a lot better.
How? Back in my head.
It's not a buffet.
There's a light system.
Who is this?
Where? Where'd he fall?
In like Brayburn's.
Bill Yates?
opposite the Christmas tree lighting. Right over here, yeah. It's a Hanukkah lighting, yeah. I think that must have been because he was getting carted out.
Well, yesterday one of the CBS Saints C-stands at Russell Plaza.
For us, it's a normal job because we are all the time all over the world giving service for the people. Taiwan, Nepal, South America, the most South American countries, and now the last earthquake we work in Amatrice, in Italy. So now I was coming back September 19 from Miami because we were working, supporting the people, victims of the hurricanes in Texas and in Florida. So now,
you come home.
All right, it looks like Melania Trump is coming to the garden now, so we are going to go back to this live event.
Okay. Yep, that is
Hello, everyone. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Hi. How are you? You have a question for me? Yes? You're Melania Trump? Yes. I'm a first lady for you who doesn't know me. So I just want to welcome you to the White House and thank you for coming and helping me to harvest and plant the vegetables in the beautiful garden. So I think we will have a lot of fun. So who has a garden at home? You do? What do you grow?
Apples, and I grow tulips and roses.
Oh, fantastic, beautiful. Somebody else? No? What is your favorite vegetables? Do you like them?
I like carrots.
Carrots?
Amy.
Nice. You're very good at vegetables. You like vegetables. Broccoli, delicious.
Olive.
Nice.
Collard greens.
Nice. Carrots, yes. Corn. Beautiful. String beans. Nice. Tomato.
Garlic.
Nice. Delicious. I like tomatoes too. I'm a big believer in a healthy eating because it reflects on your mind and your body. And I encourage you to continue and eat a lot of vegetables and fruits. And so you grow up healthy and take care of yourself. Have a healthy living. But it's very important. Yes? Do you want to go and have some fun?
Yes.
So when you leave today, I want to send you home with garden kits so you could continue gardening at home, and as well as honey from the White House. So from the hive, so you could enjoy with your family, and I hope you like it. Yes? You want to come with me and have some fun?
Yeah.
Let's put the gloves on. I brought mine too.
And we're going to do a photograph really quick.
Oh yeah, let's have a photo. All of us. Yeah? These are okay. Yeah, come on in. Let's all squeeze together.
Okay, everybody looking right here.
Great. Very nice. Come on, let's go.
Make sure you get your gloves on. Oh, look at those. Those are nice.
Yes, everyone wants to divide up into the groups. Have we decided on our layer?
You ready?
I didn't know. I get nervous when you come through. I figured she might want to take
don't say no to that.
All right, what about you guys? Look at all the pictures down there.
These are the chefs, and the National Park helping us. The chefs here from the White House, that they're cooking delicious food and they're using those vegetables as well. So they will help us today.
Yeah, if you want, go ahead and go with that. I don't like those with
Oh yeah. No one picked tomatoes?
Yeah,
no one picked tomatoes here with Jeff?
A couple of people are going to go with Rick and help him with the artichokes inside.
All right, Miguel, you want to go help and then we'll go pick some tomatoes?
I like her accent.
Okay.
All right, here's a basket right here.
You want to pick peppers too? You do it.
Red tomatoes are going to pop off better. Usually green might be a little bit harder. Yep, you take a good chance. If you have a hard time, here's a full knife right here. So you can just green one, you just pop it off. Yeah. All right, and go ahead and try to fill this up. Get the red tomatoes too if you want.
You know, this is how come you know the one at the ark?
Yep, well, we got to learn how to properly take care of the farm. So this is actually another thing guys. So take these things right now. So I got it back to the you guys can marry some stuff.
Oh my. Yep, there you go. Sometimes you get that smell. Yeah, tomatoes have their own unique smell.
This is different latitude food tomato plant. It's all drum.
They're hiding all in there.
Oh, there's a big one here.
I got a big one. They're ready.
Big ones down there, ready.
Even the little ones are good. Little guys like that, they're good.
Plant some things. Yeah. Am I pulled in?
Okay, so I'm going to visit one more of your friends, okay? Just take a row and have a look at that. Is that okay?
And then we can just pull these right up. These are least. And you just grab a hold.
Yours coming up?
Yeah, mine are hard.
Let's see.
No, I'll take them each. You put them in your basket and then we can take them over to stuff and wash them. Yeah, just pull it.
Thank you.
Now, you guys pulled that. What? The audio from the mobile?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
We kept it going. I actually ran on the mic over there to try to get more sound. Oh, yeah, look at that. He got ambient the whole time. I don't know. I don't really understand it.
Let us be friends ever.
It should be a switch, and then I click, and then it goes to yours, right?
Dozens of events at this veggie garden. But First Lady Melania Trump, for the first time today, great steak. Let me go get my tripod.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Sure.
Comedy guy, man. You were distracting running around because of your shoes. First lady was laughing at you. That guy, man. And you gotta be able to not take yourself too seriously. Especially when you have green shoes. You have to be able to laugh at yourself.
Well, that was a court order. He had to wear shoes like that. They're easy to find. Right. He's running.
There he is.
Yeah.
For real.
So you've been here for a whole week, and this is the first time you looked at that mixer?
Right.
Live shots of live going down.
Should we go ask her, or?
Run back on that.
Yeah, right now? Okay.
Oh, you mean?
She's bringing up the rear. Yeah. Oh, not Stephanie. Catherine. Does she know?
You wanna ask
Stephanie's the one to know that? Okay. Never mind that.
No. I know who's back there. Because I think they're in.
Check out this ladybug.
You got a ladybug? Oh, check it out. It's
Yeah,
green.
yellow.
Well, it's not a ladybug. I think it's some sort of beetle.
Beetlejuice.
Might be a poison bug.
Yeah.
That's probably an invasive species. Yeah, good. Bring it out of the White House. Thanks. It'll multiply.
So they used to give out. So you can get those from your congressional office. Like, it's massive. It's massive. Yeah, the plaid. And we're back. That's it.
Well, thank you.
What?
Thank you.
good job of this.
Got a job for life.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing Russian. I can do this in a day.
Ryan, what's up? Did you see it on the return?
No, I never saw it. They took it live.
All I can do is live.
You can't make this shit up.
How silly was it?
No, it was more silly. Like,
Yeah.
All right, everyone, I am just getting situated. I just had to do a tease for our morning show on television, so give me a second. Here is a live look at the White House following that White House Garden event. I want to go ahead and take you guys back now to Mexico City, where we're getting some pictures in now.
Están los ingenieros abajo. Abajo, detrás del camión, casi no lo ves, pero están aquí.
Ah, sí los veo, con el casco
Y
amarillo.
arriba están bajando taladros. Ya.
Bajando taladros.
Van a taladrar.
¿Qué taladros?
Jackhammer.
Oh, boy. Yes, I do. ¿Dónde me quieres? ¿Aquí?
Ahí estoy.
I'm going to stand behind you. I don't want to knock you. Okay.
Vamos ahora.
Yeah, thank you.
Un poquito más adelante, no importa. No hace falta. Entonces me dice ingeniero primero y después arriba.
Okay.
Está el israelí y está el equipo japonés.
Okay. Sin perros, ¿verdad?
No, los perros ya no.
Cargando súper lento hoy. Traje la poderosa. Okay, let me set the scene first. Are we the top story? Thank you. Thank you. Todavía ves al israelí, claro, para poder.
Si no, hay otros miembros de otro equipo por todos lados. Sí, hay varios.
All right, everyone, we're actually going to cut out of our Mexico City feed because we want to take you live now because there's going to be a briefing at the Pentagon. We have a live feed coming in from the Pentagon now. We are waiting the Department of Defense's response as to how the military is dealing with Hurricane Harvey and Irma. This is a live feed. We will have this live press conference for you in just a moment. Stay tuned. All right, everyone, and welcome to Fox News Now. We appreciate everyone tuning in. You guys are looking at a live look at a press conference set up at the Pentagon. We are waiting to hear from Department of Defense officials as to the military's response as far as how they're dealing with Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Harvey. So we'll be monitoring this situation, and as soon as that press conference starts, we'll show you that here live. And in the meantime, joining me is Ron Hoon. Ron, I appreciate you joining me. Happy Friday.
Yeah, it is a happy Friday. It's National Ice Cream Cone Day.
Oh, it is?
So on top of all the events in the world that make it feel like things are going crazy, you can take a minute and enjoy an ice cream cone.
Note to self, hit the McDonald's drive-thru a little bit later.
You know what?
today.
I hit a McDonald's just yesterday. I
For
go
an
for
ice
the
cream cone?
dipped cone as opposed to.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's worth. I think it's worth the extra 30 cents to get that chocolate.
Well, happy National Ice Cream Cone Day to all our viewers as well. We have so much news to talk about today,
goodness,
Ron.
yeah.
There is so much going on.
Okay. Where do you want to start?
Start with President Trump?
Sure.
Should we start with? I think it's time that we start with the feud between President Trump and Kim Jong Un.
Right.
It just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I want to go ahead and pull this video up for our viewers now. Let's go ahead and pull that up for the viewers. This is a tweet that was sent by the president yesterday, and Kim Jong Un did not let it slide. Let's put it that way. President Trump tweeting, Kim Jong Un of North Korea, who is obviously a madman who doesn't mind starving or killing his people, will be tested like never before. Kim Jong Un responding to President Trump.
It's been back and forth, back and forth. I mean, it really all started a long time ago, but it really escalated this week. The president gave a pretty stern talk at the United Nations, laying down the fact that the U.S. has the capability and is fully willing to attack and destroy North Korea if they ever were to attack our country. So the question is, where does it go from there? And it's been a whole week of both of them kind of calling each other out.
I know. And I think the big takeaway, at least as far as the internet is concerned, is the word dotard or dotard. How do you
Dotard.
say Dotard.
Dotard.
You know what? I've never even heard the word, to be honest. I think there are a
Dotard?
lot of people on the internet that were just like...
when I first heard it this morning, I was scanning across all the channels.
There were people that thought it was a fake word.
I know. I thought it was a mispronounced word. I thought it was daughter, like doddering, like a doddering old fool, right? Like the word daughter or doddering, but it's dotard.
This was trending everywhere on Twitter yesterday. It's D-O-T-A-R-D.
Correct.
And it's so interesting that Kim Jong Un used a word that many people in America did. It was like so many Americans had to look that up in the dictionary. Like how is Kim Jong Un's English better than ours? I'm not really sure.
I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. That's going to be a highly used word across the spectrum in North Korea for a while now, because people do seem to fall in line with whatever the dear leader goes with. So dotard is the word.
There are a few more President Trump tweets that he tweeted today that I do want to get to, but I actually want to stop our conversation for just a moment, Ron.
Whatever you want, Samia.
We are going to go ahead and dip into this Pentagon briefing now. We're hearing from the Department of Defense as far as the military's efforts regarding Hurricane Irma and Harvey. So let's go ahead and listen in to this event that's happening now.
Lately, that we're here prepared to do as much as we can and continue to work that and to support everyone that's been affected by this. So well before Harvey made landfall, until the season is over and wildfire season is over, we'll be there, and we'll be through volunteerism and other forces here to support as a supporting agency in the Department of Defense to all the rest of our partner agencies in this time of difficult time. So, over to General Holland.
Thank you, sir. Well, good afternoon, and I, too, thank you for being here today. As is already mentioned, I'm Diana Holland, and I represent the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Over the past few weeks, the Corps of Engineers has been heavily engaged in supporting our states and territories following 3 hurricanes, Harvey, Irma, and Maria. And so, like the General here, I'd like to express our thoughts and prayers for those affected by these storms. We recognize that there are people who have lost a home, their belongings potentially essentially their livelihood. And it's for that reason the people of our organization, the organization I represent, feel so passionate about doing everything possible to help. So just a little bit about who we are. I command one of 9 divisions of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the South Atlantic Division. The area of responsibility of our division includes the southeastern United States as well as the Caribbean islands. So, as you can imagine, the entire impact of Irma and Maria was felt in our region. And so our division is the lead for the Corps of Engineers in the hurricane response following Irma and Maria. The areas in our region affected include Georgia, Florida, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. And just to briefly describe the complexity of this, 2 storms which each brought unique impacts requiring specific resources and expertise, 2 states, 2 territories, 4 governors, 2 FEMA regions, and so on. It has been truly remarkable to watch the broad U.S. government response, and I'm happy to report that we're working very closely together in support of those governors' priorities. So as I mentioned, each state and territory has its own requirements, but there are some things that remain consistent. We share the desire to reunite families, get survivors out of shelters and hotels, and get back to their homes and restore some normalcy. So our role in this is, as we like to say, FEMA's engineers. They give us our missions, and our missions are what you might expect engineers to do. Debris removal, and when I talk about debris removal, I mean high volume, in the hundreds of thousands of cubic yards. Infrastructure assessments, temporary emergency power restoration, temporary roofing. Some of you may be familiar with Blue Roof, and I can talk more about that later, but that's one of the primary things we do when residences are damaged, and temporary housing. And then in collaboration with the United States Coast Guard and NOAA, we work really hard with the ports authorities to help them open the ports. So our approach to this support to FEMA is right people, right place, early. And here's what I mean by that. Early on, before Irma, we pre-positioned our soldiers and civilians, selected because they have certain specific skill sets, on the island so that as soon as Hurricane Irma passed, they could quickly assess the damage and begin to plan for the required support. We anticipated that ports of entry would be closed, and they were. Had we not been on those islands in advance, along with the other agencies, we would not have been timely. We would have been subject to the same delays that others faced because the airports and the ports were closed. Same approach for Florida, although in the case of Florida, we don't face the same logistics challenges as we do on the islands, because the ability to transport people and supplies by ground is a key advantage. Then similarly, as Maria approached, we had the right people in place so that after the storm, they could quickly restart our efforts. Right people, right place, early. Last week, I had the privilege to visit Florida, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, and unfortunately, as you've seen in all of the images, a lot of damage across the board. And that was before Maria struck the territories. Our teams, which sheltered there during the hurricanes, were able to begin their assessments of the damage yesterday morning following the storm. And the assessments continue. The airports are damaged and closed, although I've just learned that the airport in Puerto Rico has opened to military traffic. The ports are closed. Of course, a lot of power outages, roads blocked by debris, water damage, the things you would expect following a major hurricane. These assessments will continue over the next several days, but all of us that support FEMA's response are acting. And so here's what some of those actions are. We're looking at our ports on Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and are working with NOAA and the Coast Guard to survey the channels so that we can confirm that they are safe to open. We will assist FEMA and the islands in emergency repairs at the airports in San Juan and Virgin Islands. Power. So with power, other things are manageable. So it's really one of our first priority. We're helping to assess power on both Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, particularly in the hospitals, health clinics, and wastewater treatment plants. We've restarted the Blue Roof program in the Virgin Islands. So Blue Roof refers to FEMA's 10-millimeter blue sheeting that can be installed over a damaged roof, providing protection from additional rain and allowing people to leave shelters and return home. In fact, we think tomorrow that the first blue roof in the Virgin Islands will happen, and that will be a huge milestone and a real morale boost for the people of the Virgin Islands. And as we look to the weeks and months ahead, we will continuously right-size the response teams to ensure we have the right capabilities in place, that we're balanced across all of these regions with the right leaders at the right time as the recovery continues. So in closing, we're just over halfway through the hurricane season. And that's important for us to remember. 1 November is kind of the mark on the wall where we see the end of that season. So though we focus our attention on the response to Irma and Maria, we also must remain prepared and flexible in the event we have another storm. I'd like to talk briefly about our people. So our essential soldiers and civilians of the Corps of Engineers who were on Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands following Irma chose to remain in place despite warnings that Maria could be a major hurricane and despite being offered the opportunity to evacuate. They wanted to be in position to help as soon as possible, and they wanted to show the people of those two territories that we're in this together. It has really been an inspiration to be a part of this effort. So one point of nuance. Many of the hundreds of the Corps of Engineers who are part of this response aren't actually assigned to the division I command. They come from across the United States, including Hawaii, Alaska, Seattle, Tulsa, Sacramento, Buffalo, New York, and many other places. Without exception, when I've asked our team how do they feel about the mission, serving in Georgia, Florida, Puerto Rico, or the Virgin Islands, they say, I can't imagine being anywhere else. I want to help. I want to make this right for people who have lost so much. So in closing, there's a long road ahead. But as a representative of the Army Corps of Engineers, I can say we're committed to this no matter how long it's required. Thank you for your attention and your patience, and I guess we're happy to answer your questions.
Absolutely.
Idris. Sure. You sort of mentioned this in your remarks, but other than the electrical grid, could you talk about how widespread the sort of devastation is in regards to schools and hospitals, and how long do you think it's going to take you to complete your assessment on the damage?
I think it's going to be many days before we have a good picture on on the whole scope of this. The first thing we start with is the essential services. So, like I said, the hospitals, the clinics, some of the government buildings, because they need that in order to continue to manage the response. So I can't say exactly how long it's going to take, but it's going to be weeks before we know the full scope. That doesn't mean that we don't start for a few weeks. But the major assessment and the overall complete restoration on Puerto Rico will take some time.
What about the schools and hospitals? Sort of where does the other infrastructure other than the electrical grid sort of stand right now?
So I don't know right now beyond power. I mean, we do know that the power outages is extensive, between 95 and 100% right now. So it will, and without power, then you potentially have issues with water, but all of that is still being assessed right now.
All right, everyone, so you can see that military is also responding to the issue of Hurricane Maria in addition to Hurricane Harvey and Irma. Speaking of Hurricane Maria, we now know that 6 people confirmed dead in Puerto Rico in Hurricane Maria-related deaths. Ron, that's some really unfortunate information.
Well, and San Juan is a major, it's a major city, but there are parts of the island that are more remote, and as you and I were talking yesterday, Samia, I have actually not been to Puerto Rico for many, many years. This goes back literally all the way to the 70s, but just knowing the way the island lays out, there are going to be areas that are going to be explored in the coming days, and that death toll will probably go up as they get, further from the main metro area of San Juan and further out into the island.
What a hurricane season, Ron.
I don't believe I've ever heard of a situation where it's not a nation, it's almost like its own nation, but it is a territory of the United States. But to have the entire place, the whole island, 3.5 million people with no power, is just, it's almost impossible to consider what that must be like for everyone. Everyone has no power. Everyone has no air conditioning. Everyone has no refrigerator that works, your food.
Everything. I mean, there's so many things that we take for granted that you don't realize rely on electricity because we've all grown up and existed in this modern era where we have electricity all the time, pretty much, minus some power outages here and there.
And the other thing that we take for granted, even though we maybe don't have the greatest power grid in the world, is that it's still, we have a pretty good infrastructure system. Such that you could go to Houston today, or frankly, almost to any place in Florida, and the power's already back on.
Right. So you're talking about Houston because of Hurricane Harvey, Florida because of Irma, and you know, Puerto Rico. Keep in mind, it's still technically part of the United States.
Correct.
But it feels like a whole world away when you look at some of these pictures and you learn about some of the you know, statistics as far as power outages and things like that. You look at the flooding there on the screen. You know, that's just some of the video that we have coming in from Puerto Rico following Hurricane Maria.
I mean, every few years it seems like the whole issue comes up. Should they become our 51st state? You know, they vote on it and Congress talks about it a lot, but I don't know, maybe this is a game changer. Maybe this is something where people say, you know, we need to be like the rest of the United States in terms of our infrastructure, our power supply system, et cetera, because right now the estimates are, the latest I saw, it could be 6 months before everyone has the power back on.
That is crazy.
I mean, I understand that right now the effort is, according to the latest interview I saw just hours ago, are the key for example, hospitals, fire stations, police stations, et cetera. They're just trying to get the power onto those locations before they even start getting into neighborhoods, you know, where homes are destroyed or homes are flooded. It's just, it's a massive, massive undertaking.
Definitely, Ron. Now I want to go ahead and switch gears now to another story. So I'm just going to throw this video up on the screen. The Mexico textile factory collapse. So this is a situation that, you know, did not happen on Tuesday following that magnitude 7.1 earthquake. No, this happened today. This textile factory has collapsed. We're hearing at least 21 people dead. This is just another, you know, it's another incident related to a national or natural disaster.
Yeah, I mean, there are two big headlines coming out of Mexico today. One is regarding this factory and the fact that they did overnight pull 2 people out alive. But on the other hand, there's just the, everybody's wondering, how could the information have come out of the city so wrong and so bad that frankly much of the world was holding out hope that there was a little girl trapped and alive in the rubble, and now we find out there is no child that is trapped there. Where did all the miscommunication come from?
Well, it's really interesting that you brought that up because yesterday we were hearing reports that there were up to 3 children trapped in that rubble. We were talking about it here on News Now yesterday. And like you said, just hours later, they were like, you know what? There are no children. If there is someone trapped in there, it is an adult who is trapped. And it doesn't appear that rescuers were able to rescue that individual.
We are aware that especially in the first few hours after a major disaster, or frankly any kind of breaking news story, there are a lot of different pieces of information that come in. But you know, here this is a quake that happened days ago, and we're all getting our hopes up. I don't know about you, but this was probably the #1 thing I cared about when I got up in the morning. Was, did they get that little girl out alive? And then we find out this morning there was no little girl. I mean, everybody's accounted for. All the kids are accounted for, and sadly, many of them did not make it out of that school alive, and those that did are already either back with their families or in the hospital.
Right, so you're looking at video from earlier this morning of rescue workers working to access people at that textile factory collapse. This is in the Colonia Condesa area of Mexico City, and for anyone who has visited Mexico City or has researched Mexico City, this is a very popular area. This is one of the nicer areas. When I researched my trip to Mexico City last year, every blog out there kept talking about how you need to stay in Condesa, how it's so nice. It gives you an authentic feel of Mexico. It's young, it's vibrant. It's a very modern part of Mexico as far as, you know, restaurants and things like that are concerned.
Did you find it to be exactly, I I mean, did it sort of meet your expectations, or was it different than even you anticipated when you actually arrived?
Well, Mexico City as a whole exceeded my expectations. You know, I'd read a lot of things about how it's very underrated, how it's the up-and-coming place to visit, and I really enjoyed it, specifically because I'm such a foodie. There's such great food out there, and I know when I heard about this earthquake, I was shaken to the core because, again, you know, we hear about these events that happen all around the world, and when you've been there personally, you think about you personally know what it feels like to be there, and you think about all the people that may have just been visiting there that were caught up in the incident. In this situation, it's the Mexico textile factory collapse, but last month you and I were talking about the Barcelona attack.
Yes.
You know?
Right, and you had been there, and I hadn't, but I thought, well, my daughter has traveled there multiple times. It's probably her favorite city in the world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, you either you directly know about it or you know somebody who can really relate to it. And it's, I told the story yesterday. My aunt and her kids lived there in Puerto Rico for many, many years, and such amazing, wonderful, cool people in Puerto Rico, and it's just a heartbreaker, And so now in Mexico, right now the hope is that there may be some survivors at that textile factory, so we'll watch that one closely too.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Fox 10 Extra on Channel 9, and that's cable Channel 9, regular Channel 45. We are continuing with some of our headlines. Ron Hoon joining me. Ron.
Yes.
We still need to talk about President Trump's tweets from today.
Yes, we do. I mean, he went after, for example, good cop, bad cop. A couple of days ago, he's talking about Rand Paul, my great friend. Really hope he can come through for us. Now that it looks like he's against the final chapter of repeal and replace, he's like, this guy is going to forever be known as the Republican who saved Obamacare. I mean, you know, Rand Paul is...
Depending on your position on Obamacare, that could be a good thing or a bad thing.
I suppose so. And he's the only no vote that we know about right now. John McCain, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, those are the other three. They're playing their cards pretty close to the vest right now. Yeah.
So let me go ahead and pull up President Trump's tweets from today. So we have the tweets there on the screen. President Trump, always tweeting every morning. He always tweets really early in the morning.
Yeah, he does.
And these are some of his tweets. I don't, let's see. He just tweeted a lot. Okay, it started here with the Rand Paul tweet.
Yep.
So, like you said, Rand Paul or whoever votes against the health care bill will forever, future political campaigns, be known as the Republican who saved Obamacare. Then he moves on to Kim Jong Un. You want to go ahead and read that?
Kim Jong Un of North Korea, who is obviously a madman who doesn't mind starving or killing his people, will be tested like never before. That's the tweet of all of them, I think, Samia, that's getting most of the talk today. So
then he continues by retweeting Charlie Kirk, who tweeted, President Trump's speech at the UN was the best speech I have ever heard a sitting U.S. president make in my lifetime. Donald J. Trump retweeting it and simply commenting, thank you.
I actually really like when he does retweet or quote tweets somebody, because it shows you he's scrolling through his feed.
Right.
If you ever wanted to speak to the president, your one chance is to @ him on Twitter, because I'm sure he's scrolling through it like crazy, but every once in a while he's going to stop and read some of those tweets, and who knows, maybe it's yours, because today it was Charlie Kirk's.
Perhaps. You can always write 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue too, the old school way. Write a letter.
Hey, you know what that could end up doing is get you a job mowing the lawn at the White House, right?
Just write a letter. So he retweets a couple of tweets. I want you to go ahead and scroll up to his original tweets once again. Here it is. So he starts talking about Russia, Hillary Clinton. The Russia hoax continues. Now it's ads on Facebook. What about the totally biased and dishonest media coverage in favor of crooked Hillary? The greatest influence over our election was the fake news media screaming for crooked Hillary Clinton. Next, she was a bad candidate. So once again, he brings up Hillary Clinton. He brings up the election. You know, people have differing opinions on this. Some people enjoy the fact that he bashes the media and continues to bash Clinton. Other people are like, you know, you won, you're the president, let's move on from the 2016 election.
Well, Samia, I think there's a little bit of a backstory there, and it is, I believe, that I think he was kind of surprised at the pushback he got when about a week ago, after meeting with Chuck and Nancy, he said, well, you know, we'll do it's not amnesty, but we'll move forward on DACA now. We'll get that wall thing done later.
Well, there was some pushback from some of his early supporters, for example.
No doubt.
Coulter was very upset.
She said, you are the swamp, right?
That
was one of her tweets.
She'd rather have President Pence at this point if there's no wall.
Yeah. And so I think he has gone back to his base in terms of his social media outreach, because he's going back to what has worked in the past. So,
and there's one more tweet I want to get to. This one right here. We'll be in Alabama tonight. Luther Strange has gained mightily since my endorsement, but we'll be very close. He loves Alabama, and so do I. It's interesting he brings that up. He will be speaking at the rally tonight, and that was the story that I wanted to get to a little bit later on in the show, and I will get to a little bit later on the show, because there is this, you know, intense battle between Roy Moore, Luther Strange. They're both hoping to secure that GOP position for the Senate race, the special election, to be Alabama senator. And, you know, when there was the initial election, Roy Moore got the majority of votes.
Yes, right. But now
there's one less candidate.
We've gone from 3 to 2, and it does look like it's going to be close, and it's going to be fascinating. I'll tell you one thing the president is right on target with. I love Alabama, too. I've explored pretty much all of that state, from Mobile to Huntsville and Tuscaloosa to Montgomery, and man, that is a very special place.
He does love Alabama.
Okay, so those are just some of the tweets the president's been making news on this morning. By the way, I went onto Twitter and I put a poll question up saying, what do you think? Is it time to tone it down or keep the pressure on with the war of words? It was running pretty close to 50-50, but I believe it was about 55-45. People saying, yeah, you know what, they're feeling the pressure, you can just tell. But a good 45% of folks were saying, no, it's time to really tone it down. We're getting into some dangerous territory.
Yeah, well, you know,
yes, Samia?
Most people, I mean, sure, we can look at Twitter on a website or on a computer.
Yes, we can.
But
do it all the time.
There's a better way, in my opinion, to go on Twitter. The better way?
Yes.
The iPhone.
Oh.
Whether you're using an iPhone 4, 5, 6, or 7.
Yes.
You know, you still have the ability to tweet using your phone. Now today, there's another option. There's the iPhone 8.
And there's the watch. It's really interesting because
you can tweet on the watch.
I think it's. Yeah, I think you can do everything on the watch.
I mean, I believe
now.
you. I don't really know that much about the iPhone watch.
So I know you can text on the watch.
Right.
It's probably speak to text, but anyway. So we've been out here in the Valley in Arizona, in the Phoenix metro area, but we've also seen video from other parts of the world. People who are standing in line today are not standing in line for the 8. Anybody who's out there standing in line, so far that I've heard, they're standing in line for the new watch.
Oh.
So this is an unusual situation. They've rolled out an 8, but everybody's really hyped about the 10.
You're right.
So, weird.
I mean, if you're someone who's going to wait for a phone,
Correct.
then why get the 8 when you can get the 10?
But I would. I mean, because it's $699 versus $1,000,
Right.
and it's still going to have the best camera yet, and it's going to have all, several other kind of cool things. But if you want everything, although Samia, I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this, but a friend of mine said he's really skeptical of the whole new voice technology thing, or the facial recognition.
It's too much.
As opposed to just tapping it with your thumb, because like you're at the grocery store, and instead of just tapping with your thumb to Apple Pay,
right,
you have to hold it up to your face and wait for your phone to recognize it so you can do Apple Pay and check out. He's like, visualize the scene at the grocery store checkouts now. People, one person after another doing this. Like, come on, I want to pay for my food.
I mean, you could say that most millennials are already doing that a lot with the selfie that they take at all times.
Yeah,
but
so it's the person like 6 people back who are like, hey, quit taking a selfie. I'm just trying to get my phone to pay.
Oh, man.
Hilarious. Okay, so the other thing is, can a major city in the world ban Uber?
And they and this is related to the iPhone because you go on your iPhone.
Yes.
To call your Uber.
Yep.
Now we're hearing that London is against the use of Uber. They've banned it.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know there's pressure on a lot of cities from other interest, taxi drivers, etc. And boy, the taxi drivers in London are an amazing group. They literally have to memorize every city in this, or every street in the city. And a lot of their streets go like a block and a half. But the mayor says, no, we're not caving to pressure from anybody. This is Uber not following the rules. So you cannot now get an Uber in London.
This is crazy, and this is disappointing because London is a very expensive city to visit.
I was just in London in December. I took this picture. Can I actually show our audience here, Samia?
Hold on 1 second. Let me just pull up my camera.
I think I can even with the sound. I took this from the back of an Uber at maybe the most famous spot in London, right at Big Ben. Okay, now, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it or not, but here we go. I'm going to try. Ready? Come on. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I'm like covering up the picture there, but here, let me do it this way. Okay, so that's my Uber driver.
Oh, you're playing the audio so that viewers can hear the Uber driver speak.
And that's me, literally the picture from the back of a Uber car driving past London's famous Big Ben. Here's the other picture right here.
So you used Uber in London, and you chose to use Uber because it was significantly cheaper than getting into one of the traditional London cabs. And London is an expensive place, and it's very spread out, and sometimes it's not easy to just hop onto the tube and get from point A to point B.
It's really going to be nuts because I think when we left the hotel to go to Victoria Station to take the train, then back to Gatwick Airport, I believe that from the hotel to the train station, which was not very far, was going to be 15 pounds on a taxi. So just to get over to the train station, which was maybe less than 2 miles, was going to be 15 pounds.
And what was
taxi.
the exchange rate then? Because
that would
again,
be probably,
the pound is stronger than the dollar
correct.
is.
So that would be close to $30. It would probably be about $26.
The exchange rate was that high when you were there?
Yeah, it was about $1.25.
Okay.
So $1. So I'm saying.
So 125 would be.
Oh, my math at this. So anyway.
Would probably be.
Yeah, it's a 25% add-on.
$19.
It's a 25% add-on to 20 pounds. So that would be.
20 pounds, not 15.
Correct.
Okay, so then, yeah, 25 bucks.
Oh, no, sorry, you're right. It was 15 pounds.
So back to 15 pounds.
Oh, there's too many questions
here on
okay,
News Now.
right. So
we have a 15-pound Uber ride.
15-pound Uber ride that would have been 20
about
bucks.
$19.
Yeah, 19, 20 bucks. Instead, with the Uber, it was 6 pounds. 6 pounds, or about $7.50. I mean, come on. And I thought the Uber driver was the coolest guy. You know, he was telling me sort of his life story about how he became an Uber driver and everything.
So again, there's so many people that are going to be affected by this ban in London. I know Uber issued a statement talking about the number of jobs, the number of drivers that are affected by this ban. According to the mayor, Uber wasn't following certain policies. I mean, I hope they can resolve this. I know there have been other cities, you know, in the past that have had issues with Uber, that have suspended Uber, banned Uber. I know there was an Uber situation in Austin, Texas, for example. But London is one of the biggest cities in the world.
I know. It's ridiculous.
Is such a pedestrian-friendly city in the sense, you know, people don't all have cars when you live in London. So they probably rely on Uber heavily there, especially if you live you know, central to the city and you don't have a car. So.
Sure. And I mean, I know Lyft's there, and who knows, maybe they have a half a dozen other ride-hailing services that are just rejoicing today. But Uber's the big one.
And Uber is the verb you use. Does that make sense?
I'm gonna Uber
even
over there.
When you're using the Lyft app, you still say, I Ubered here.
Samia, you are correct.
I've used Lyft, but told someone, I just Ubered.
It's totally in the lexicon. It's like how a generation ago we used to say, well, I'm going to Google it.
Right, you're going to Google it even though you might use Yahoo.
Yeah, maybe you Googled something on Bing. It could happen. Anyway, you Ubered in a Lyft, but you're not going to Uber in an Uber anymore in London. Here's the question. Do you believe what the mayor is saying? If you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, let's just see how it all plays out. Uber could easily say, okay, we're going to do bing, bang, and boom, and we will be in compliance, and then you can give us our certification back. We'll see.
All right, everyone, you are looking at a live feed from the UN now. We are watching this United Nations feed as Sergei Lavrov is speaking now, the Russian politician and foreign minister. Obviously, we are very interested in hearing what members of the Russian government have to say. So let's go ahead and listen in to this discussion happening now at the United Nations.
Initiative on the table to call the parties to Moscow to start serious negotiations. The Palestinians accepted this initiative, but the Israeli part didn't. Do you see there is a chance for two-state solution? There is no land left in Palestine. So can Russia get involved seriously in this quagmire? Thank you.
One more problem for which Russia is responsible. Шутки в сторону, нас очень тревожит тупик, причем все углубляющийся тупик в палестино-израильскому регулированию. В последнюю очередь это нас тревожит еще и потому, что неурегулированность палестинской проблемы в течение уже сколько, 70 лет, активно используется экстремистами для того, чтобы вербовать молодежь в свои ряды, ссылаясь на то, что международное сообщество вершит несправедливость по отношению к народу, который страдает в результате самого старого конфликта, имеющегося на сегодняшний день. Ну и, конечно, неурегулированность не может удовлетворять, потому что палестинский народ до сих пор не имеет своего государства. Много можно вспоминать периодов, этапов на переговорах, когда-то они были очень активны, потом затихали,
negotiations were active and they were less active when there were agreements in Camp David in Annapolis. I think we could argue whether it was correct to denounce Camp David agreements. Maybe that would be an unachievable dream right now, but what we have is what we have, and unfortunately we do not learn by others' mistakes, and it seems that we cannot learn our own mistakes now. But you're completely correct that I believe that the lack of direct dialogue is very bad. And basically, we had agreement from both parties to conduct the meeting of Abu Mazen and Benjamin Netanyahu without prerequisites when they both prepared for that. Specifically, naturally, we'll give them an opportunity to discuss the situation, and we hope that we can bring that out of the dead end, because the lack of dialogue very seriously and very negatively influences the situation in the region and the relations between Israeli and Palestinians.
Please, the microphone, the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Minister Lavrov. My question is about Cuba and Venezuela. You speak yesterday about that. We would like to know about your position about the sanctions, the United States sanctions against Venezuela and the American blockade against Cuba. Thank you.
Now, as for embargo against Cuba, you don't even have to ask me. Our position, just like the position of the 99% of the UN member states, is well known. It is included in the resolution, which is adopted every year, and there is an overwhelming majority of those who believe that this embargo is extremely counterproductive, illegitimate, and as a matter of fact, unilateral measures never brought the necessary result. They only poison the atmosphere, and they preclude us from making conducive conditions for dialogue. As for Venezuelan sanctions, that what I just said completely applies to that as well. We're very worried about what is happening in a country which we have friendly relations with, and I talked about it with many countries in the region. I talked to CELAC countries. I met with Argentinian FM, with El Salvador, Dominican Republic representatives, and others. We welcome the initiatives of Salvador, which is right now the head of CELAC, and we're prepared. We welcome the Dominican Republic also taking part in the efforts to start the dialogue. We welcome the preparedness, which I yesterday felt during the negotiations with the Venezuelan foreign minister, the preparedness of Venezuelan dialogue between themselves without interference from outside. And we do welcome mediation by Latin American countries. There is also another factor, the behavior of external players. Those who want to help, they indeed work with all parties to the conflict. And those who want to torpedo the settlement, they are working with one party alone. Well, we do have very good relations with the government and the president of Venezuela. But we're being called upon, and the leadership of the parliament is also asking us to do that. And we're not shying away from context, and we're calling on everyone to sit down at the negotiation table and to agree on something. And that should be done in any situation when inside a certain country there is a crisis. The same applies to the UN and other international structures, and in personal life as well. Sit down at the table and agree. Thank you.
Kurdistan referendum.
All right, everyone, you are now looking at a live look at the White House. We will have more news now in just a moment. Stay tuned. All right, everyone, we are now going to move on to another topic. This is a very interesting topic. Divorce rates are down. That is good news. Andrea Robinson will be joining me in just a second to discuss the latest news on the fact that the divorce rates are down. Joining me now is the one and only Andrea Robinson. Andrea, I don't get to have you up here often.
How are you? You look pretty today.
Well, thank you.
Happy Friday.
I know, happy Friday. Every Friday is a happy Friday.
Right?
Indeed, indeed. And today's even happier because we have these new findings. Divorce rates are down. It's a nearly 40-year low, right? And you spoke with someone on the morning show about this.
Yeah, we had a relationship expert. She's a therapist, Dr. Lisa Gold, on. And she kind of explored a little bit more as to what was to do with these rates, because so often we're told more than half marriages, that's been the stat forever,
50%.
more than end in divorce. Yeah. So that's always positive. Like, let's get married because we're going to be one of two, you know.
Those are the optimists in the world.
Right, exactly.
They're the glass half full type.
True. But so it's good. It's promising. Here's the thing. This is what she said, and I thought was interesting. So they've decreased, they've dropped just ever so slightly from like 23% to like 17%. So that's good. But she says part of it is this generation, we are getting married later in life. You know, before it was early 20s. Now we're well over 25 when we start thinking about marriage or getting married, which when you think about that, you know, by that time you've graduated from college, you've had several years in the workforce, you have a career, you know, you're established as your own person. And she said, this was interesting. She said, women specifically, not to say anything bad with older generations, but the times are different now. Older generations, we as women stayed home more and we worked in the home. Now we don't do that as much.
You relied more on the man's income as well.
Exactly.
So getting married was the thing that you kind of needed to do to survive.
And you looked at, you know, a potential husband as somebody to be the breadwinner of the home. Now you're either equally a breadwinner or sometimes, you know, the women are the breadwinners now.
Taking charge,
you know? And so that kind of gives you a little bit more of, she said, you have a different level of respect as well. And she said, waiting longer to get married, you actually marry for love.
Right, and you also are more clear about what you want, because the person that you love at 21 may not be the person that is best for you, because you're younger, you're not experienced, you haven't really fully figured out what you want in life.
And look at life now versus like your life even 10 years ago, college and things like that. I mean, you just look in general at like friendships and things that you have. Those evolve, those change, seasons come and go.
Right.
And so as far as like your marriage goes, I mean, you're definitely a different person if you got married at 21 than even 31 and 41. So she says that, you know, marrying somebody that you actually love is being seen more than ever before, and somebody that you like are friends with, you enjoy being with,
hanging out with.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I asked her because, you know, the stats are great, but anyone that's married knows that marriage is a lot of work. Like, it is not honeymoon every day. Maybe the first year, yes. After that, though, you start adding things into life, jobs, kids. Then the kids grow up, like are growing up, and they have lives, and you're trying to manage their lives, and you easily lose each other in the shuffle. And she said that so often, it's her favorite counseling to do, but she has couples even come in that are happy. They don't want to get divorced, but they just kind of have lost a little bit of the passion because they have been so busy tending to everybody else in the family that they forget, like, you still have to date your spouse.
Right.
Like, just because you're married, like, you don't ever stop dating your spouse. And you need to put that as a priority. Because once that's good, then everything else usually stays good when mom and dad are happy and husband and wife are happy.
That's so interesting. So back to this study, it's a nearly 40-year low now, the divorce rate. We've talked about how this generation is just getting married later. I think another point I want to make out, and I'm speaking from this millennial point of view, is the fact that people aren't valuing the institution of marriage as much. You know, people are, if they want kids, they're having children out of wedlock. They think they can be fine just kind of living on their own. It's a different scenario.
I definitely think the traditional marriage is differently viewed now than it ever was before. And I think it is because of the generation now with millennials and things like that.
And I also think
the thing is most millennials have come from a traditional type family, you know, and their parents have been married for some time and things like that. But I also think, you know, I came from a divorced family when they were very young. So I, you know, grew up with two separate households. And not that that was ever hard. It was different. And so for me, I value the sanctity of a marriage that's will stay together. Exactly. So just because I came from the other side of things.
Right. And another thing I want to point out is, I guess, growing up as millennials, you hear people always saying half of marriages end in divorce, half of marriages end in divorce. And that's a stat that they keep telling you. So I think maybe that psychologically affects you growing up. Whereas, you know, an older generation, our parents' generation, they didn't hear any of that stuff.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, but how often, and I'm hearing it more now too, like even friends that I had, you know, in college and high school, you know, their parents have been married 30, 40 years. And now all of a sudden they're starting to go through divorces. And it's like, I can't imagine having gone that long in a marriage and now getting a divorce. And so often, and the doctor had said, it's because you've lost each other within that shuffle. And I think that scares younger people too. Like, oh my gosh, my mom and dad were married for this long and now they're in their late 50s and early 60s, and they're getting a divorce. And what do you do now? Like, starting life all over again at that age is definitely harder than doing it when you're younger.
Right.
So.
And this is a topic that we brought up on our Facebook page as well. And I know you wanted to go ahead and check in with some of the Facebook comments. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up for our viewers now. Here is a look at our Facebook page. If you guys don't like it already, make sure to go to that page and hit that like button.
You're missing out.
Facebook.com/Fox10Phoenix. So we posted this a few hours ago. Sound off. Divorce rates are at their lowest in 40 years, according to the most recent data from the National Center for Family and Marriage Research. Tell us, what's the reason behind this? What can you do to make your marriage stronger? So I'm very interested in seeing what the viewers at home had to say. We have more than 200 comments that have come in so far. So let's just go ahead.
I looked at some of them earlier this morning, and they really do run the gamut as far as people's thoughts as to why this is. And like Marisha Dowdle says, because some of us actually believe in our vows that we took before God. Some of us learn the value of marriage. Relationships are not disposable, contrary to what society and Hollywood tells us. Some of us work hard at our marriage every day. Some of us understand to be successful, you have to work hard. The grass is not greener on the other side. I think my parents and grandparents were leading by example. Families that pray together stay together.
Oh, wow. And that comment had 48 reactions, 44 replies. A lot of people commenting on that. The number one comment as far as reactions are concerned are just the statistics that Gail pointed out. You know, less marriages equal less divorces.
And that is a statistic. And I think having less marriages to take a stat from, I think that's in relation to there's less people getting married right now because of what you said. I think people are just holding off on the actual getting married part of things. Like, I think people, you see it more often than ever. People live together, people establish a life together more than anything before they actually, if they even ever do get married.
Right. They choose to live their own lives, choose to make their own decisions, choose to not give in to parental pressure.
Yeah, which I think that has something to do with, too, where you stand spiritually and religiously, because as far as what you think marriage really is, as far as what you believe, your morals, your ethics, and your set of values.
And all the major religions do preach about the sanctity of marriage, and they do encourage it.
Yeah. And so I think it's just, again, it's really based personally on how you feel, how you were brought up, or how you and, you know, how, like, you know, me and my husband choose to believe that, you know, if it weren't for God, the two of us wouldn't be together.
And you were meant to meet for a reason.
Yeah, and we hold our marriage and our union and our friendship, you know, as one, and you put God first, and then you put him next, you know, my husband next, and then the kids, and then everything else works.
Falls into place.
But it takes work because it's not easy every day.
I'm going to get a "Why aren't you married?" emailed from my mom in just a few minutes because I know she's watching at home.
See, moms always want.
Oh, she's been on my case for 13 years.
Then once you get married, then you're going to be getting the calls all the time. Well, when am I going to be a grandmother? When are you going to have a baby?
Thankfully, because of my older brother.
Well, she can always have more.
Let's go check in with the Facebook comments once more. Let's take this conversation off of me. Let's take the pressure off and see what the viewers at home said. Valois also commenting, saying, find the one true love of your life. Don't just jump into marriage. And just because you disagree on something doesn't mean it's the end. Disagreements will happen. Talk them through. Love each other no matter what.
I like that. That's good. I mean, that's good, great advice, you know. And Teresa, right below her, Teresa A. Black Hamilton says, I think there's no pressure to marry young. Women can wait until their 30s to have children. Mature adults are able to make better choices and usually have schools and careers established. I didn't have kids until I was later in my 20s. My second I didn't have until I was 31 years old. So I did the same thing. Like I always thought actually I would wait even longer to have kids after we were married. But
that's so interesting.
But then I have friends that got married when they were 21.
Growing up, how early did you think you were going to get married? How early did you think you were going to have kids?
So growing up, I definitely didn't think I would be married when I got married when I was 26. And I thought I would be closer to 30 when I got married.
Wow.
But we were also together for like 7 years before we finally got married. So he had to just make sure I wasn't like totally crazy. Now he probably rethinks that sometimes. And then same thing with kids. I thought we were going to wait a little bit longer. And then we had kids, the first one almost 29. Another one almost 31. So
See,
a little
this
later.
is the opposite of my life. Like, I grew up kind of thinking that I'd get married sometime between 23 and 25, and I think it's more from a cultural point of view. You grow up in an Indian Pakistani household, and it's like marriage is kind of ingrained. So you grow up believing what your parents believe, you know, and you grow up thinking, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. But then, you know, you go through college and you live life and you realize, like, that's not what I want. And then suddenly that 23 to 25 gets pushed back to 24 to 26. Then it turns into 26 to 28. Then it turns into before 30. And now it's turned into it'll happen when it happens.
Exactly. And when it does, it'll be the right time.
Right.
And
you can't just stick to a timeline.
No.
And I think the people
especially with marriage.
And I think I see a lot of people with my background that tend to stick to a timeline, and they end up in divorce because they're not marrying the right person. They're just getting married because they think this is what society wants them to do.
Yep, exactly. So let's see. Okay, let's want to read one more comment?
One more comment.
Okay, let's go, because we had so many. I kind of feel bad leaving all these people out. Let's see. Okay, Lee says, some of them I have to make sure they're okay to read. Let's see.
Right here.
Yeah, that's funny, because it's cheaper to keep her. Cost of living is too much as a single woman. I would have stayed married to my ex-husband had I known how hard it is.
Oh, wow.
Wow. And then Kenneth says exactly what this said. Facts show less people are getting married, which means in turn lower divorce rates. Yeah, it is simple math. It is. But I still think, though, that in general it's a positive thing. I mean, and delaying marriage doesn't mean anything bad either. I think it's just waiting for the right time.
All right, everyone, I am just getting our next video queued up. We'll have more news now in just a moment. Stay tuned. All right, everyone, that is just a quick look at a live feed of our tower cam. You guys are looking at downtown Phoenix. We'll be back with more news now in just a moment. Stay tuned. All right, everyone, you are looking at a live look at downtown Phoenix. I want to welcome you back to the Fox News Now stream here on Fox 10 Extra. Again, this is a live look of downtown Phoenix. It is a lovely day here in Phoenix. I'm not complaining. I think our high today is 89 degrees, so that is very pleasant news. The start of fall kicking off pleasantly here in Arizona. No more triple-digit heat, at least as far as the next 10 days are concerned. I want to go ahead and check in to those temps once more. This is the 10-day forecast. In case you were not aware, it is quite cool this weekend, at least for Arizona's point of view. It's actually not even 89 today. It's 86 today here in the greater Phoenix area. So again, this is very good news. We'll be in the 80s through Monday, and then we'll creep back up into the 90s, which, you know what, I guess I will tolerate, because 96 is better than 102. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick weather update, and now we're going to switch gears and move on to some other news. I know that Vice President Pence spoke with the Maine governor this morning about tax reform and health care. In case you missed that this morning, we're going to show that to you here on News Now. So let me go ahead and pull that up for you. Let's go ahead and watch that now.
Well, good morning, all, and it's my privilege on behalf of President Trump to welcome Governor Paul LePage of Maine to the White House today. The President and I are truly grateful for Governor LePage's leadership in Maine. The motto of the state of Maine is "We Lead," and under Governor Paul LePage, that's been true in so many ways, but before Obamacare, it was especially true when it came to health care. We're grateful for his leadership. We're especially grateful that Governor LePage and people across Maine are supporting the new Graham-Cassidy bill, which will not only repeal and replace Obamacare, but it will provide Maine with all new flexibility to return to the historic reforms that Maine was leading the nation with in their Public Law 90. It is truly remarkable. When you look at the Graham-Cassidy bill, what the governor appreciates is this is not just a fresh start for America on health care reform, but it's also a fresh start for Maine. Maine was leading the way in individual market reform with its high-risk pools until Obamacare came along. And since then, their high-risk pool was shut down, was put on the shelf, and it was replaced with the failed exchanges of Obamacare that have seen premiums rise by 55% since 2013 for the people of Maine. What Graham-Cassidy will do for Maine is it will repeal the individual mandate and the taxes and penalties associated with it. It will repeal the business mandate. But what's got Governor LePage and governors across America so enthusiastic is that Graham-Cassidy will use block grants to give states like Maine the ability to craft solutions that will work for the unique situation in the state of Maine. The truth is that what will work in Alaska won't work as well in Maine. What will work in Indiana won't necessarily work as well in Texas. The Graham-Cassidy bill, the President and I are strongly supporting, will give governors like Governor LePage the ability to return to solutions that are working and also advance innovations in Medicaid and other areas of health care reform that will better serve the people of their state. So let me say, Governor, the President and I are truly grateful for your leadership in Maine. We're truly grateful for your support of this opportunity to repeal and replace Obamacare. And we're grateful to the people of Maine, so many of which are supporting this effort to return to what was working in Maine. And we're encouraging Senator King, but especially we're encouraging today Senator Susan Collins to join us in this effort, to give the people of Maine, to give the government of Maine the resources and the flexibility to be able to craft solutions that will improve the lives and improve the health of the people of Maine. So Governor LePage, thank you for your leadership, and we're so grateful for your support.
Well, it's great to be here, and it's very, very important for the people of Maine to have the ability to go back to Public Law 90 or something similar to it. The high-risk pool was really helping lower the premiums, lower the deductibles on people in Maine. And unfortunately, what Obamacare did is it robbed nursing homes and home care services. And we need to go back. We've made those reforms. We are helping Mainers, particularly our elderly, since we're the oldest state in America. And so our needs are much different than some of the younger states. And our children. We need to protect our children because they're the future of Maine. And so these are all very, very important things. And we in Maine know what our needs are better than people here in Washington. And the Vice President and the President both recognize that one size does not fit all, and our needs are all different. And so I'm really in big support of Graham-Cassidy, and I really urge the Senator to really take a hard look, both Senators Collins and King, to help Maine people go back to affordable health care and health care that works. And we have already were leading the nation in pre-existing conditions. Back in 2011, when we passed Public Law 90, pre-existing conditions were taken care of. It's a state requirement. And therefore, and they did not affect people's premiums because we did it in a very innovative way. It's what we call behind the curtain. People didn't even know it. All we need to know, if you had a pre-existing condition, the state took care of it.
Mr. Vice President,
Thank you all.
what's your
Thank you, guys.
answer to all of the medical groups, the American Medical Association, the American Heart Association that say this is a bad bill?
The American people know that Obamacare has failed. Truth is, you've seen premiums rise in Maine by 55%, but in many states around the country, we've seen premiums increase since Obamacare became law by 100 and even 200%. The average American family is paying more than $3,000 a year more for health insurance today. And in the state of Maine, 34,000 residents of Maine actually chose to pay the penalty to the IRS instead of paying for insurance that didn't provide adequate coverage for them and for their families.
And in the next cycle, we're looking at 40% increases in premiums to our elderly who are living on fixed incomes. You can say what you want, and all these organizations can say what they want, but they got to sit in my seat and see people go without insurance.
The American people know we can do better. They know that we can have a fresh start in health care reform. We can repeal the individual mandate, we can repeal the business mandate, and we can allow states like Maine to return to solutions that were working. The high-risk pool known as Public Law 90 in Maine was working. It was making coverage available and affordable. It was making coverage available for people with pre-existing conditions. Graham-Cassidy requires coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. It creates those protections. It creates a more equitable distribution of resources over time to states all around the country on a per-person basis. With all due respect to competing opinions out there, the American people know we can do better than Obamacare. And the example that we saw in Maine before Obamacare gives us great confidence that by empowering states with resources and flexibility, we'll provide better health care and will improve the lives of the people.
And since our reforms in Maine, we've been able to add 40% more revenues to our nursing homes, and we've been able to add 60% more revenues into our home care. So we're keeping people in their homes longer, independent of confined nursing homes. And I'm telling you, people want to live in their homes as long as they possibly can.
That's right.
Thank you.
We gotta go. Thanks, everybody.
Go ahead. That one right there is fine. Rebecca,
Thanks.
one more from Maine.
What happens if Maine voters decide to expand Medicaid?
If Maine voters expand Medicaid, what's going to happen is exactly what happened when I came into governorship in 2011. We're going to owe the hospital. We won't be able to pay our hospitals. We were at $1.3 billion in the red, and it took me 6 years to fix it. And how we fixed it is we brought our liquor business back into the state of Maine because it was leased out by a previous governor, and now we're using that to help pay for the bonds we had to borrow to pay off the last $1 billion, $750 million of unpaid hospital bills. Now, the only option from now on would be to double up on your drinking, and I don't want that for Maine people.
Some analysts say that they would Maine lose $1 million in this plan.
No, Maine's a net gain in this plan. In matter of fact, if you read the Wall Street Journal, Maine benefits. This is why I'm so aggressive on it. Maine actually comes out ahead on this for the first time in decades, that Maine's going to be ahead in the future of healthcare in this country.
And let's be clear on one last point. Whether it be the individual market, on which Maine was a national leader with the high-risk pool in Public Law 90, or whether it be in the ability to innovate and reform Medicaid, as we did when I was governor of the state of Indiana, by block granting resources back to the states, we're inviting 50 different states to create new innovations that will make healthcare more accessible, more affordable, and will improve people's lives. That's the real solution to the failed policies of Obamacare, is empower states like Maine, like my home state of Indiana, and every state in the union, with the resources and the flexibility to craft solutions that will work for the people of their state. And we couldn't be more grateful to Governor LePage for his support, for the support of governors around the country that are beginning to step forward on this measure. More than 15 governors around America, and that list is growing. But Graham-Cassidy is an idea whose time has come. President Trump and I are absolutely determined to carry this case all across the country and to call on members of the Senate, most especially Senator Susan Collins from the great state of Maine, to join us in giving the people of Maine and the people of America a fresh start on health care reform that promotes freedom, promotes individual choice, individual markets, and reforms and state-based solutions in health care. So thank you, Governor. It's great to have you at the White House.
Pleasure.
Great. Good job.
Thank you, Brad. All right, everyone. So that was that press conference from earlier today. They talked a lot about this Graham Cassidy bill. We do have some breaking news. It's written right there on the screen. Senator McCain says he's against the GOP health care bill, and he says that he cannot in good conscience vote for this bill. I want to go ahead and pull up his tweet really quickly. He just posted this moments ago saying, "I cannot in good conscience vote for Graham Cassidy. A bill impacting so many lives deserves a bipartisan approach." We'll have more on this story in just a moment. All right, everyone, you are looking at video of Senator McCain. This is breaking news. Senator McCain making the big announcement that he cannot, in good conscience, vote for the Graham Cassidy proposal regarding health care reform. Joining me now is Celeste Rodriguez. Celeste, this is huge news. I mean, President Trump has been blaming Senator McCain for the reason the initial repeal and replace of Obamacare didn't pass, and now the Republicans have this new proposal. And Senator McCain is just coming out and saying, you know what? I can't support this either.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. I think this is really important when you take a look. You showed his tweet a moment ago.
Yeah, I'm going to
pull that up. When you take a look at that and you take a look at his actual statement on the health care reform, it helps you to really take this into perspective and understand where he's coming from. And I'm going to read another quick quote that he mentioned as well. He said, I would consider supporting legislation similar to that offered, and he calls them friends, by my friends, Senators Graham and Cassidy, were it the product of extensive hearings. So his main argument is he doesn't want this to go along party lines. He says this should be something that should be handled within, discussions within these leaders. It should be handled in a bipartisan way, and he wants it to happen a little bit more structured. So he doesn't like the fact that it's just along party lines. And that's really his main argument and why he's voting against it.
Right, and he mentioned that they're his friends. I mean, Lindsey Graham is one of his best friends.
Yeah, he said, these are my friends. But it is an interesting relationship when you have somebody who you are friends with, right? And the true
and you
way
disagree with the way they're doing something.
And you can separate that, right? You have politics and you have, business business and personal, and he's separating that right now. But you're also seeing a lot of people on social media coming out in support and against of him. We saw a tweet from Jimmy Kimmel sharing his thoughts, giving kudos to Senator John McCain on his vote on this as well.
Right. So Jimmy Kimmel calling Senator McCain a hero. Jimmy Kimmel has been speaking out a lot over the last few days about the GOP healthcare proposal and his stance on it. He's been talking a lot about healthcare in general because of his own, his own experience with his young child.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting, and we're going to have to see what happens in the coming months in terms of whether or not some of these leaders come together and try to create some type of bipartisan bill that everyone can kind of at least get on board on, and something is just not voted on just because it's a party line amendment.
And you have actually Senator McCain's full statement, right? So I don't know if you want to read
a portion of it.
The statement.
Okay, so he says, as I've repeatedly stressed, he says, healthcare reform legislation ought to be the product of regular order in the Senate. Committees of jurisdiction should mark up legislation with input from all committee members and send their bill to the floor for debate and amendment. So he says this is the way things should be done. Let's do this according to law, according to how the Senate should do business. He says that is the only way we might achieve bipartisan consensus on lasting reform, without which a policy that affects 1/5 of our economy and every single American family will be subject to reversal with every change of administration and congressional majority. But I think you bring up a really good point that in fact he was the standout the last time. He's the standout this time, and
he's facing this big healthcare battle himself. He's dealing with brain cancer, and healthcare is on the forefront of not only the national agenda but his own personal agenda as well.
Right. So he's feeling some of the effects personally. Of course, in terms of his health, but
and the importance of having adequate health care. I mean, he is someone who has been a public figure. He's in the government. He does have the adequate health care, and I think, being in that position, I think he wants to ensure that there is a health care proposal that both sides can agree on that will take care of the American public. He wants to wait. He doesn't want to vote on something without hearing the CBO score, for example.
Right.
And so that's his position, and President Trump had tweeted about any politicians out there that oppose this health care bill. It'll destroy their career. They're going to be known as the Republican that saved Obamacare. He tweeted that this morning. And I think from Senator McCain's point of view, he's not looking at re-election in, 5 years, 6 years. And, he needs to do what he thinks is right.
Yeah, when you see some of the leadership, I think, as you mentioned, get older in age, so to say, or at the end of their career, their political career, then you see them starting to make some moves that they may not have taken earlier in their political career.
It could have been political suicide. People, they do have to strategically vote sometimes, even if they personally disagree with things.
What's interesting about his statement as well is he doesn't base it on whether or not he agrees with his friends, the leaders who created this bill, or he disagrees with them. And in fact, he really bases it on the rule of law.
Right.
So in a sense, he's keeping it extremely neutral. He's like Switzerland. He's just saying, this is the way it is. This is the rule of law. This is the way I want to keep it.
And he's been in the Senate for so long. I think he looks back to the good old days where both sides were able to come together and work on a resolution and work on more bipartisan efforts. It seems like in recent years, it doesn't seem like the Democrats and the Republicans can get along. They can work together on anything. And with something as important as healthcare, it is important to come together from a bipartisan point of view and get something that everyone can agree with, or at least kind of agree with enough.
It kind of takes you back to the schoolhouse playground, doesn't it? And you think, why can't everyone just get along? Why can't these kids play with these kids? Why can't we agree on something for the better of the group?
Can Ted Cruz and Elizabeth Warren come together? And
can you both play jump rope at the same time? Come on, let's get more people involved. Let's do some double dutch. Let's get it going. But how that's going to happen and when it's going to happen, this is quite the announcement made on a Friday morning as we head on into the weekend. And what work will be done early next week, we'll have to wait and see.
All right, Celeste, well, thanks for joining me. And viewers at home, we will continue to focus on this story as it is the big breaking news of the day. I do want to go ahead and read Senator McCain's statement in full for you. As some of you may have only seen Senator McCain's tweet, you may not have read the full statement. So we're going to start from the top. I'm going to go ahead and read that statement for you in full. As I have repeatedly stressed, healthcare reform legislation ought to be the product of regular order in the Senate. Committees of jurisdiction should mark up legislation with input from all committee members and send their bill to the floor for debate and amendment. That is the only way we might achieve bipartisan consensus on lasting reform, without which a policy that affects 1/5 of our economy and every single American family will be subject to reversal with every change of administration and congressional majority. So, Senator McCain is concerned, well, every time there's a new president, healthcare is going to be affected again. And his goal is to just find something that everyone can agree on so that, that becomes the status quo. I'm going to continue to read this statement now. McCain saying, I would consider supporting legislation similar to that offered by my friends Senator Graham and Cassidy were it the product of extensive hearings, debate, and amendment. But that has not been the case. Instead, the specter of September 30th budget reconciliation deadline has hung over this entire process. We should not be content to pass healthcare legislation on a party line basis, as Democrats did when they rammed Obamacare through Congress in 2009. If we do so, our success could be as short-lived as theirs when the political winds shift, as they regularly do. This issue is too important and too many lives are at risk for us to leave the American people guessing from one election to the next whether and how they will acquire health insurance. A bill of this impact requires a bipartisan approach. Senators Alexander and Murray have been negotiating in good faith to fix some of the problems with Obamacare, but I fear that the prospect of one last attempt at a strictly Republican bill has left the impression that their efforts cannot succeed. I hope they will resume their work should this last attempt at a partisan solution fail. I cannot, in good conscience, vote for the Graham-Cassidy proposal. I believe we could do better working together, Republicans and Democrats, and have not yet really tried. Nor could I support it without knowing how much it will cost, how it'll affect insurance premiums, and how many people will be helped or hurt by it. Without a full CBO score, which won't be available by the end of the month, we won't have reliable answers to any of those questions. I take no pleasure in announcing my opposition. Far from it. The bill's authors are my dear friends, and I think the world of them. I know they are acting consistently with their beliefs and sense of what is best for the country. So am I. I hope that in the months ahead, we can join with colleagues on both sides of the aisle to arrive at a compromise solution that is acceptable to most of us and serves the interests of Americans as best we can. All right, everyone, welcome back to the News Now stream. We are looking at video from earlier of Senator McCain when he took to the Senate floor to talk about the issue of health care. Senator McCain making headlines across the country as he announced that he is against the GOP health care plan. He cannot in good conscience support it. He cannot vote for it as is because it hasn't gone through the process. There haven't been hearings. It wasn't a bipartisan effort. This is breaking news. And Jimmy Kimmel, someone who's been very vocal about the healthcare issue, tweeting moments ago a thank you to Senator McCain. Thank you, Senator John McCain, for being a hero again and again and now again. Jimmy Kimmel again tweeting that in the last half hour. This is, again, some breaking news. Senator McCain voicing his opposition against the proposal to repeal the Affordable Care Act. That's right. The senator from Arizona announced that he would oppose the latest proposal to repeal the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, which leaves Republican leaders with little hope of succeeding in their last-ditch attempt to dismantle this health care law. Now, Senator McCain, who killed the previous repeal effort with his dramatic no vote in July, released a statement saying he would not support the latest proposal by Senators Bill Cassidy of Louisiana and Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who is Mr. McCain's closest friend in the Senate. In case you missed part of the statement, Senator McCain said, "I cannot in good conscience vote for the Graham-Cassidy proposal. I believe we could do better working together, Republicans and Democrats, and have not yet really tried, nor can I support it without knowing how much it will cost, how it will affect insurance premiums, and how many people will be helped or hurt by it." Now, obviously, this is big news. I assume that it is a top trend on Twitter now. I haven't checked Twitter quite yet, but John McCain is trending nationwide. I do want to go ahead and pull up Twitter for you guys so that we can see some of the tweets as it is currently trending. You have John McCain, one of the top trends on Twitter, people reacting. You have people against McCain and they're pro-Trump being very opposed to Senator McCain's decision. Meanwhile, there are other people that are thanking Senator McCain, like this individual right here, Bill Madden, saying, "Thank you, Senator McCain. Your light has never shined brighter, and the American people are grateful." So a lot of tweets in regard to McCain's announcement. It is very interesting to see the mixed opinion and the mixed reaction. Marge Simpson saying, "Thank you, John McCain. You very possibly just saved my son's life. Tears, gratitude." Proud Resistor saying the leader of the Republican Party is not Donald Trump. It's John McCain for having the decency and courage to fight for everyday Americans. So those are people supporting Senator McCain. I do want to find a tweet that perhaps is not happy with Senator McCain's announcement. Kind of going through some of the tweets now. Anthony Russo, for example, tweeting, "Breaking traitor John McCain will vote no on healthcare bill, screwing his own state." So, Anthony is saying that. Meanwhile, Cindy, an Arizona girl apparently, saying, "Thank you, Senator John McCain. Once again, country before party. This bill is not a fix." So, again, Cindy is speaking from the Arizona point of view. She sent this tweet from Phoenix, Arizona in the last half hour, and she shared her opinion on this breaking news. Again, John McCain, one of the top trends on Twitter right now, after he announced that he could not, in good conscience, support the Graham-Cassidy proposal. So again, this is breaking news, and if we have any new and additional information, we will, of course, bring that to you on News Now. Again, breaking news, a big deal, of course, as Senator McCain is our senator from here in Arizona. Not only our senator from here in Arizona, but one of the most prominent Republicans there on Capitol Hill, arguably the best known Republican on Capitol Hill. And this is big news. He is going against party lines and voting with his conscience. And we will see how President Trump responds. Now, you may remember that President Trump did indeed tweet about any Republicans who opposed this latest effort to repeal and replace Obamacare, saying, or at least hinting, that it would be bad for their political career. Clearly, that is not Senator McCain's concern as of right now. So that is the latest news there. I do want to go ahead and switch gears. We have some other news from earlier. Now, this has to do with, you know, some issues in Texas specifically. This is a Texas Senate bill that people marched in opposition of as attorneys argued in support of a bill that would allow sanctuary cities there in Texas. Now, attorneys were in a federal appeals court in New Orleans hoping to instate this sanctuary city ban in Texas, and you can see that there were marchers there. Let's go ahead and listen in to the audio from this march from earlier.
What democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Down with deportation! Down with deportation!
All right, so this was a march in opposition of a bill affecting the state of Texas. Speaking of Texas, the world's largest cowboy was installed at the State Fair of Texas. Big Tex went up in Dallas. I want to go ahead and show you guys these images from earlier because it is quite a sight to see Big Tex going up at the State Fair in Texas. This is really interesting to watch the world's largest cowboy as it gets positioned so that it can move from the position of lying down to standing there at the State Fair of Texas. Now, here are some fun facts about Big Tex in case you did not know these fun facts about Big Tex, which if you're not from Texas, you probably didn't know too much about Big Tex to begin with. He's known to many as the world's tallest cowboy. He greets you with arms wide open every year during the Texas State Fair. You can't miss him. He first stood in the fairgrounds in this court of honor. That's where he'll be installed in just a moment. You'll see that video. When he debuted in 1952. That's right. So Big Tex has been there since 1952 at State Fair. A few years later, Big Tex moved down a bit to the Lone Star Boulevard, to the center of the roundabout. He's stood there ever since. So excuse me, I said that was the Court of Honor. That's not the Court of Honor. That's actually the Lone Star Boulevard roundabout. And he has been standing there since the 50s. So it's been, approximately 60 years. He debuted in 1952, which makes Big Tex technically 65 years old as far as the State Fair of Texas is concerned. Looks like he ages pretty well. Big Tex, interestingly enough, was originally a Santa Claus in the small Texas town of Cairns, which is about 100 miles southeast of Fair Park. This giant Santa Claus was meant to attract Christmas shoppers to local stores rather than heading out of town to buy their gifts. This is according to the State Fair's website. Now, another interesting fact, I don't know how much you think Big Tex is worth now, but at the time in 1951, Big Tex was a steal. He was a bargain. Fair officials paid just $750 to bring Big Tex to Dallas from that small town. That's the equivalent of just $7,000 nowadays. What a steal. Yep, that's right. Just about $7,017 to own this big statue, this big cowboy, world's largest cowboy known as Big Tex. Another interesting Big Tex note. You may have heard about Big Tex being destroyed in a fire on the last Friday of the 2012 State Fair. But did you know that he hit the gym during his rehab? That's right. Tex returned 3 feet taller with a wider chest, bigger biceps, larger hands, and a bigger waist. And of course, he turned in his 75-gallon hat for a 95-gallon one. That's right. The hat that you're looking at on top of this Big Tex statue is 95 gallons. He also swapped his size 70 boots for a pair of size 96 Lucchese's. Lucchese is a very popular cowboy boot brand, very high quality. So these are some of the fun Big Tex facts. Interesting, some other notes that I'd like to share with you. He got an AARP card for his 50th birthday. According to the fair's website, they threw Big Tex a big party for his 50th birthday back in 2002, complete with a giant birthday cake and an AARP card. So he got an AARP card at 50. I would think that, you know, this year he's turning 65. This would be more of an appropriate age for senior citizen status, for retirement status. The question is, will Big Tex retire? He's 65 years old. I don't think he's going to be retiring anytime soon. In fact, after that fire just a few years ago, he came back wider with a wider chest, bigger biceps, larger hands, a bigger waist. I definitely don't see Big Tex retiring anytime soon. Another interesting fact, Tex has a pair of boots he wears in public and a miniature pair that makes media tours. Now, the size 96 boots that he wears here when on display combine to weigh a ton, literally, and are too heavy to take on the road. He's got a pair of 60.5s that make the rounds before the state fair. And that's just another interesting fact about Big Tex. So these are some fun Big Tex facts. I have one more Big Tex fact for you before we move on from our state fair coverage. Big Tex was featured in the 1962 film State Fair. He was also on a Marvel comic book cover in 1983. So this is video of Big Tex. We got him from lying down on the ground to standing. Now the crane will move him and lift him and position him so that he can get into the center of that roundabout. I want to go ahead and move the lower third for just a minute so that you guys can have a clear view of Big Tex. He is massive. These are aerials from earlier as workers worked to move this giant cowboy to his appropriate position prior to the Texas State Fair. This is quite a sight to see. Of course, we'll bring you all this and more, from the serious stories to the lighthearted ones, here on News Now. Now, the State Fair in Texas is from September 29th to October 22nd. They're in Dallas. And if you guys want to see Big Tex in person, you have a chance. You pretty much have, 24 days to make it to Dallas, Texas to see Big Tex on display. And you know what? If you don't make it this year, there's always next year. Hopefully Big Tex is not going anywhere anytime soon. So there he is standing. We watched as he was lifted. Great job by those workers in Texas. All right, for those of you just joining us, you are continuing to watch this video of big techs moving from the ground to the center of this roundabout at the Texas State Fair. It's a pretty interesting video to watch, especially as you watch the crane lift this giant cowboy. This is the world's tallest cowboy, and he is so massive. His hat alone is 95 gallons. So looks like he is now being positioned. I'm going to go ahead and move that lower third once again. You can see the workers on the ground positioning him perfectly with the crane, also assisting the world's largest cowboy on display there in Texas. I want to go ahead and move on to another story. This was a big story, or an interesting event rather, that took place this morning. First Lady Melania Trump planting things in the White House garden with local community children.
Yes, I'm a First Lady, for you who doesn't know me. So I just want to welcome you to the White House and thank you for coming and helping me to harvest and plant the vegetables in that beautiful garden. So I think we will have a lot of fun. So who has a garden at home? You do? What do you grow?
Apples, and I grow tulips and roses.
Oh, fantastic, beautiful. Somebody else? No? What is your favorite vegetables? Do you like them?
I like carrots.
Carrots?
Amy.
Nice. You're very good at vegetables. You like vegetables. Broccoli, delicious.
Olive.
Nice.
Collard greens.
Nice.
Carrots.
Carrots, yes. Corn. Beautiful.
String beans.
String beans. Nice. Tomato. Garlic. Nice. Delicious. I like tomatoes too. I'm a big believer in a healthy eating because it reflects on your mind and your body. And I encourage you to continue and eat a lot of vegetables and fruits. And so you grow up healthy and take care of yourself. Have a healthy living. But it's very important. Yes? Do you want to go and have some fun?
Yes.
So when you leave today, I want to send you home with garden kits so you could continue gardening at home, and as well as honey from the White House, so from beehive, so you could enjoy with your family, and I hope you like it. Yes? You want to come with me and have some fun?
Yeah.
Let's put the gloves on. I brought mine too.
And we're gonna do a photograph really quick.
Oh yeah, let's have a photo. All of us. Yeah? These are okay. Yeah, come on in. Let's all squeeze together.
Okay, everybody looking right here.
Great. Very nice. Come on, let's go.
Make sure you get your gloves on. Oh, look at those. Those are nice.
Yes, everyone wants to divide up into groups. Have we decided on our layer?
You ready? I'm going to go. I need a big one. Yeah.
I didn't know. I get nervous.
I figured she might want to take. Don't say no to that.
Yeah.
All right, what about you guys?
These are the chefs, and the National Park helping us. The chefs here from the White House that they're cooking delicious food and they're using those vegetables as well. So they will help us today.
Yeah, if you want, yeah, go with her. I don't like those front. No.
Oh yeah, nobody went to pick tomatoes? No one picked tomatoes here with Jeff?
A couple of people are going to go with Rick and help him with the artichokes inside.
All right, Miguel, you want to go help and then we'll go pick some tomatoes?
I like her accent.
Okay.
All right, here's a basket right here.
What the peppers do?
They should. Red tomatoes and pop off rather easily. Green might be a little bit harder. Yep, you pick it with your hands. If you have a hard time, here's a couple knives right there. So you can just green one, you just sometimes they'll pop right off. Yeah. All right, and go ahead and try to fill this up. Get the red tomatoes too if you want.
You know, this is how come you have a logo? The one at the arc?
Yeah, well, we got to learn how to properly take care of the dogs. So this is actually what you guys do. So taking these things right out. So we go back to the you guys can learn some stuff.
Oh my. Yep, there you go. Sometimes you get that smell. Yeah, tomatoes have their own unique smell.
This is different lettuce and sweet tomatoes that it falls from.
They're hiding all in there.
Oh, there's a big one here.
I got a big one.
They're ready. Big ones down there, ready.
Even the little ones are good. Little guys like that, they're good.
Plant some things? Yep. Yeah. Jessica.
Hey.
Am I pulled in?
So I'm going to visit one more of your friends, okay? You just take a roll and I'm going to take that. Is that okay?
And then we can just pull these right up. These are least. And you just grab a hold.
Yours coming up?
Yeah, mine are hard.
Let's see.
No, I'll take a leaf. You put them in your basket and then we can take them over to stuff and wash them.
Just pull it out?
Yeah, just pull it. Yeah, there it is. You got nice. These are great for salad. want to try the carrots next?
Let's see what boys are doing.
Yeah.
Those were, yes.
All right, everyone, you've been watching Melania Trump at this White House Garden event. If you guys want to continue, join us, fox10phoenix.com.
Y'all seen Yard Trip before? Yeah, that was a good time. We want to go over to the board station?
We also have
We're wrapping up.
Shall we go to wash some vegetables now? So let's see what needs to be done.
All right, so that's the end of that White House Garden event. I wanted to replay it for you in case you guys missed it. Here is a live look at the White House. Where this garden event took place. All right, viewers who are joining us, this wraps up our News Now coverage for the morning. We'll be back this afternoon with more News Now. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Thanks for watching.